So, hot topic workforce. Should Final Fantasy XIV and Realm Reborn become a Realm Remade at some point, or should we see a natural sequel to the world of Final Fantasy XIV? That's today's hot topic. I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments below, guys. This is a discussion, so this isn't just about what I'm thinking. I'd love to know what you guys are thinking too, because honestly, I've gone back and forth and I've settled on perhaps like the easiest answer and obviously the most expensive answer. So allow me to theoretically spend Square Enix's money here and give us everything we could possibly want, obviously instantly, right? But the reason why this is a topic, this is why we've been talking about this, is that as a bunch of new players keep coming into the community, and we couldn't be more thrilled and happy to have you guys here, have you as a part of like the Final Fantasy, community in general. There's problems like with the Realm Reborn, like getting into Heavensward. Heavensward's fantastic, but then then Stormblood, and then finally Shadowbringers. At some point, you're going to have to figure out a way that transition, that entry point is much easier. We've been watching Skill Up. He's been streaming it over on Twitch, and he's been diving in. It took him almost 87 hours to get through A Realm Reborn, but he's also doing a lot of things. He's trying to really experience everything the game has to offer rather than rush all the way to cap. The other option right now is you can use a jump potion. I'm not a fan of them. I think they're a necessary evil within the game. I don't think people who use them are evil by any means. I just think that there's more ways, better ways, but there is also a financial incentive to having them. And with a game like 14 that's so narratively focused, that is so Season 1, Season 2, Season 3, it makes sense. So we've talked about it, and we don't think that we'll see a bundling of like a jump potion with the game until at least after the new Game Plus is introduced, sometime theoretically around patch 5.1 in October or November 2019. Okay, so they do that. Well, what next? How do we go about it? A Realm Reborn has a lot of work that it needs. It's a great game. And as somebody who came from 1.0 and experienced 2.0, I had no complaints. But as somebody who's then experienced Heavensward and Stormblood and is now just like in love with Shadowbringers, we have to call, a spade a spade. And that's kind of where I've gone back and forth. So when I say a Realm Remade, what does that mean? Does that mean flying and remastered zones? In my mind, yes. It means that they look at a Realm Reborn and take in all the functionality and features and kind of remaster it. A Realm Remastered maybe is a better term. And with that remaster of Final Fantasy XIV, they're able to shore up a lot of the early game, really tighten it up, really kind of make it impactful, really kind of bring in some voice acting to different cutscenes that have a greater impact. That's a number of comments that we usually get. Like, are there any voice cutscenes in this game? And we're like, yes, but like as the game has progressed, they've gotten better at managing the voice cutscenes that appear in the game, and they're really well done, especially in Shadowbringers. I can't praise Shadowbringers enough, and we talked about it, we reviewed it. I'll point you guys to those because otherwise this is a video about loving Shadowbringers. So at some point the game needs a remaster, but that's a lot of money, right? Like I've often thought like I would love to see a Calamity, the 8th Umbral era, or some kind of Calamity in which that the game has a brand new starting point, much like from 1.0 to 2.0, where like, hey, you are now starting, everybody's starting over from this point. This is a brand new chapter. There is no going back. And then honestly, the part of me that my heart would break for that is people wouldn't be able to experience the majesty that is Heavensward, the majesty that is, Shadowbringers. People also really enjoy Stormblood, and they wouldn't be able to experience that. And so that's kind of the dilemma, right? Because I feel naturally that at some point the game has to have a new starting point, and it seems silly to be able to like kind of say, okay, well, you can't go play those expansions anymore. That'd feel wrong because like I can still go play Final Fantasy XI. I can still go experience that story, and they've changed it, made it more accessible. So it got me thinking. The best way. This is me spending all kinds of theoretical Square Enix dollars here. This is the best way. Is that over time, over the next like 5 to 6 years, they're going to keep quote unquote remastering previous parts of the game. It takes time. Rather than try to do it all at once, rather than cut off the current flow of development, they're going to keep kind of working on it. The reason why we know that's kind of happening is in patch 4.4, they went in and recoded how the Chocobo companions work. We didn't see anything visually, but I think that's going to help set them and set the stage up for more things to come in the future. So they're doing this kind of work behind the scenes that needs to happen, and it just takes time because nothing is harder to support than a live service game. Then, at the same time, I think within that same kind of period, I would really think it'd be cool. And we were talking about this last night, and this is why I wanted to make this video. It'd be really cool if we saw a sequel to Final Fantasy XIV, in which that at some point the story narrative concludes, within the current expansion. Yoshi P's talked about this, like as to what kind of time frame. We don't know. We could be talking 9.0, 10.0, or something. But along those lines, where at some point, Final Fantasy XIV story has been complete. But then it continues. And I've been saying 17. It would be neat to see, like with Final Fantasy XVII, in which that the events that happen in here are the legends within Final Fantasy XVII. By that time, Final Fantasy XIV is going to be a 15-plus-year-old game. That's kind of crazy to think about. We're coming up on 9 years of release this August. It's going to be 10 years next year in 2020. So by 2025, you're going to be looking at a 15-year-old MMO. Yeah, it got remade, but it's already going to be 6 years old this year from the remake. It's just insane how this all kind of time just flies. But how awesome would it be? How awesome would it be, if a part of the narrative is some kind of great sacrifice that we make, some kind of great moment within that, like whether it's the rejoining, whether it's like all kinds of things. But then the sequel 17 can end up taking place within this new world, many years, later. It could be hundreds, it could be millennia, but we are then like the 12 are now within the world of Eorzea. Like maybe that's who we are then, like that's just the conversation we've been having. And I would love to know your thoughts, because at some point it would be really hard to say goodbye to Bryn, in my mind. Obviously, I could create a Bryn, in the next game, and whatever that ends up being. But that gives them also a lot of freedom to create, like, not just a new story, but also to kind of respect and honor that, the events in the story that has come before it. I really have always appreciated that, but I think that it would have to have enough time within the game world so that it is myth and legend, and then us as a player, like, we could have some inside knowledge. Like, I was there at the Great Gooba Wall. I was there at the Battle of Cardinal. I was there when we defeated the Ninhogg. I was there when we beat, back the Empire. I was there when we stopped the Flood of Light. I was there, and all those kind of things. I think that would be so freaking cool. And that's just kind of how I feel about it. But obviously that takes money and time and investment. What we do know on the subject is that Yoshi P said that back in 2016, they started pre-production on a brand new game. And we don't know much more about that. But this is all under the Yoshi P house, which is, he's over Dragon Quest, like 10, I believe. I know Final Fantasy XI, all of that, like all of the mobile and multiplayer games, he's in charge of. And I think that's really exciting, and hopefully we'll see something about Final Fantasy XI Mobile or Final Fantasy XI, soon, because we know they're working on something for the 20th anniversary. So that's just really what this kind of boils down to. I think they have to do something about the base game. I think that if they also then introduced a sequel, preserving this game as a complete game online that people can go in and play would be fantastic. And I think this all gets bundled up from a cost perspective into a Square Enix subscription plan, in which that you can subscribe to Square Enix and you can play 11, 14, and presumably 17 or whatever that number ends up being. If that is in fact, unless they did a 14.2 to keep that kind of encased in its collective thought. But that's just my thoughts, and I'd love to know yours. Like, again, thinking 5 to 6 years into the future, looking at that's going to be 3 expansions minimum. And the idea we had is that, imagine if we were all expecting him to come out and say, so that would be 6.0, 7.0, so like for 8.0 or something like that. Instead of announcing 8.0, he says, and by the way, guys, I'm here to talk to you about Final Fantasy XVII. And here's how it's going to work, and this is what's happening, and here's this different da-da-da, ba-boom, ba-boom, ba-boom. Anyway. I'd love to know your thoughts. Like, I've definitely thought that if they introduced another one, it would be an action MMO. I think that's what you kind of see the industry going to. I think the technology is there that it could be very, thrilling and exciting to kind of have that kind of combat. I know we usually get that asked around anytime the battle system, is updated. Like, hey, we're going to update the battle system. People are like, is it going to be an action game? And we see that working out well with things like BDO and things like that. So it's entirely possible with the way that it's changed. And obviously here in, 5 to 6 years, we're talking like a really massive technology jump. There's going to be a lot of backbone that it should be really cool to see what they can kind of pull off if they decide to do it, because launching an MMO is a risky endeavor. And we've seen, them do that and struggle with it. And hopefully the next round, if they do decide to jump back on the horse, it would, it would go much better than the previous. So anyway, those are my thoughts. I love you guys very much. Sound off in the comments below. Let me know what you're thinking about a Realm Remastered, Reborn, Remade, or a sequel to Final Fantasy XIV at some point in the future. For Work the Game, my name's Brian. Thanks so much for watching this video. I hope you have a fantastic day. I'll talk to you soon. Take care. Whoa, you guys are the best. Jorge, Kyle, Philip, 31 Edwards, Rock Druid, Corey Longwith, Aaron, Axis, Hambone, Lady Wild Plays, CN Nabs, this is going too fast, Christopher, Phil, Shun, Dragons, Soul, Keen, Knights, Assassin, Carlos, Sherry, Robert, Leyland, Davon, Tim, Jojo World, Terrace, Sora, Scrub Lord, Trevor, Mill, Almond, 70s, Kimber, Tyler, oh my god, I'm so sorry, Cody, Legend, Armin, Carlos, Endless, Jonathan, Jade, Sai, Derek, Brandon, Aaron, Riku, Daryl, Chemistral, Lauren, The Wolf, the Gar, Kelly, Anthony, Solid, John, Huskree, oh my god, everybody, Dark Later, Christopher, Vestments, John, Nopi, Brian, Tom, Dylan, Silent, whew, I missed your names. I'm sorry. I love you all. Oh my gosh, that was tough.